afternoon. Thank you for coming today. I'm Michael Graham, board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. Joining me again today is investigator in charge, Mr. Dan Bauer, and senior aircraft accident investigator, Michael Hoff. Our team methodically and systematically reviews all evidence and considers all potential factors to determine the probable cause of an accident. We will not jump to any conclusions. I will be providing a brief update to the board's investigation into the MD-87 crash on Tuesday morning, including what we've learned so far and what we're continuing to investigate. Let me follow up on a question we received yesterday. We have obtained the video of the puff of smoke from one of the engines that the aircraft exhibited on initial takeoff roll and are analyzing it at this time. Fortunately, the engines are in good condition on the tail at the wreckage site and will allow for a thorough examination. The accident flight on Tuesday was the aircraft's first flight since December 2020. The NTSB is looking into the maintenance history and determine the maintenance that was performed on the aircraft since that last flight occurred. Airworthiness investigators are currently at the wreckage scene identifying components to be removed from the tail section for additional examination and teardown from the undamaged and the lightly damaged sections of the tail. The team had a chance to access the runway yesterday and has documented the tire marks on the surface of the runway. The tire marks indicate a hard braking application and good tire contact with the runway surface. All tires were in contact with the runway when the aircraft exited the runway surface. We have approximately 1,200 feet of distinct tire marks from both main landing gears on the runway. The NTSB did not find any debris on the runway or in the grass prior to the aircraft impacting the perimeter fence. A team is investigating, we have a team right now that is currently interviewing the pilot, the first officer, and the flight mechanic. As the investigation develops, we may speak with them again. We are also reviewing written statements from passengers and witnesses, and we'll be conducting initial and follow-up interviews with them. We do know that there were some questions about the survivability and everybody being able to get out alive. We do know that the flight mechanic who was on the flight was the one that opened the main cabin door on the front left of the aircraft, and we believe all aboard exited the main cabin door using the automatically inflated evacuation slide. I'll give you an update on the black boxes or the recorders. First of all, the CVR recording media appears to be in good condition. We're still working to download the data from that. The FDR is an older style flight data recorder and has a magnetic tape. Preliminary review of it shows the tape media did not suffer heat damage from the fire. The Flight Recorders Lab in DC is working to convert that data into readable flight data. This will be our last on-scene briefing. Additional information about the status of this investigation will come out of our headquarters in Washington, D.C. You can always follow us at our Twitter handle at NTSB_newsroom. I'll take a couple questions here. Again, please state your name and your affiliation when you ask a question.
I'm Kuchalodia with ABC here
Yes.
in Houston. So what does it mean when you say that landing gear was down and there were, you do know that the pilot was pressing on the brake. Does that mean it didn't take off? It never got off the ground? Or could you explain what that
Well,
means?
we don't know that for sure at this point. We're still investigating data. We're still waiting for data from the flight data recorder and all. What we do know is there was a heavy braking event, which appears to be an aborted takeoff. So we do know that the brakes were effectively working before the aircraft exited the runway.
Got got it.
Okay.
And when you talked about the two recordings, does that mean that you believe that there's video and audio recordings? Or would that just...
From the recorders?
Mhm.
Okay. The cockpit voice recorder would be an audio recording. We're hopeful to get that data, and we don't know at this time until the data is completely downloaded. There was some damage to them, so they had to do some repairs to the transfer areas to where they extract the data. But that appears to be going well, so we're hopeful to get good data from that. And then the flight data recorder will take a little more effort to do the download from there, but we're hopeful to get some data from that also.
Would that only be audio also, or is that...
No,
if
that
things
is
go
flight
out-
parameters in there. We're not sure of all the parameters on this older unit. It could maybe only be 8 parameters. You know, it might have something like airspeed, things like that, heading of the aircraft. You know, we're not sure of all those parameters yet. We're trying to find that information.
So far, there is no conclusive evidence of what happened with this plane or what caused this crash.
Correct. And like I said before, we're here just basically collecting all the evidence, especially perishable evidence at this time. We will analyze that data at a later date as we bring in all the data together. Yes?
Doug Begley from
Yes, Doug.
Chronicle. Just to make sure that I'm clear on this, you said that there are 1,200 feet of markings indicating that the brakes were applied along the runway.
Correct. We have approximately 1,200 feet of distinguishable heavy braking marks from the tires. It looked like they were effectively trying to brake that aircraft.
And that's sort of what I wanted to make sure I'm clear on, is that this was not, this is not a situation where the brakes were applied. The pilots were attempting to fully brake the plane at the time that it was still moving forward.
That is correct. That's what those indications would be.
Which implies that I'm just trying to roll through this and understand that, then why weren't they stopped?
Well, that's one of the things that we will be looking for, especially from the flight data recorder. At what point were and why, what airspeed was the brakes applied? Then our performance group could get into how much runway distance it would take to brake an aircraft like that at that speed.
Are the markings to the northern end of the runway where the runway terminates?
Yeah, the brake marking went off, it exited the runway, and then we have distinct wheel marks from all 3 landing gear. There's actually 2 tires per gear, so we have 6 distinct impressions on the grass going to the perimeter fence.
Is there any indication that the plane was on fire at that point?
At that point, we have no debris field, and there's no indications of any fire markings at that point.
But there are in the field across Morgan Road.
Across the road, yeah, across the road on the north side, the left wing had made contact with a row of trees, and basically that's where we have a debris field. Much of that is part of the wing coming apart, and we do have some distinguishable fire marks starting at that point as it continued to the north.
The fuel is in the wing, correct?
Correct. This aircraft, the fuel tanks are in the wings.
So if the wing came into contact with something, what happens to does it spill out?
Yeah, potentially the fuel could start exiting the wing or the hole in the wing, and then if there's enough of an ignition source, then it could light on fire.
Do we know if that happened in this case?
That's what we're investigating at this time. They're at the scene, continuing to document that and determine what would have caused the fire.
Let's take a couple more questions.
2 more.
Are the engine, can you elaborate on the condition that the 2 Pratt and Whitney engines are in?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The engines are in great condition, actually, for what they went through. Since they sit fairly high on the tail section, they have very limited damage on there. And our team of power plant experts are very happy with the condition, and they're getting good information from them as they continue to work right now on them.
So is it, trying to think of a way to ask this properly. Is that then, if both engines are in good condition, does that imply that they in fact did not suffer a cataclysmic action? They did not break apart. They did not explode.
We're not going to we're not going to make any conclusions on that now. It just allows our investigators to be able to investigate that, collect appropriate evidence, and then at a later date they'll be able to come to a much better conclusion as to exactly what happened with each engine at that time. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Just a quick question, when are y'all gonna move the plane? Is that, do we know that, like, is that there for the next week or two?
Let me find out for you, and